The Others is a supernatural horror film that came out in 2001 that's written and directed by Alejandro Amenabar and stars the one and only Mommy Kidman. So The Others is yet again another patron request from Tyree. His last patron request was for The Return, and I reviewed that movie about a month ago, so if you haven't checked that out yet, please do. So The Others is a movie that's been on my radar for way too long. I mean, I remember seeing previews for this movie way back when it first came out. I had to be like in first or second grade. But I remember seeing previews for this a lot. I don't know what it was, but this movie, in terms of the marketing, I remember it being implanted into my brain. But it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago when I watched The Innocents for the first time, a film that came out in 1961, to where this movie really started coming back to my psyche, and I started getting actually motivated to check it out. And it also has recently gotten a Criterion release, which is pretty damn awesome as well. And the reason why I heard about this movie when I watched The Innocents some time ago is because what I heard about The Others was that it was essentially a remake of The Innocents. And that's basically all I knew about going into it. And now after watching The Others, I wouldn't say that this is a remake of The Innocents. I mean, it's definitely largely inspired by it, because conceptually on the surface, it reminds you a lot of The Innocents. Not only this gorgeous and dreary gothic aesthetic that's present in both films, but I think it's definitely more present here in The Others. But even beyond that, just the character of the mother and a caretaker and the two children that are living in the house, and the mother questionably going through this psychosis manic experience. There's definitely a lot of similarities conceptually, again, on the surface that you can draw between these two movies. But The Innocents was more of an ambiguous psychological character study, and The Others definitely dabbles in that and explores similar things, but it has a whole other type of experience in mind for the audience. And what I mean by that is that The Others basically removes that narrative ambiguity that we get in The Innocents, and instead just offers this full-on revelational package in the third act of the movie that basically recontextualizes the entire thing. And I think both films work incredibly well for what they're going for. I mean, usually I'm a bit biased, and I kind of appreciate more ambiguous angle and vision to a film. But The Others really had this direct way of storytelling that to me was unpredictable and incredibly creative, that really packs a punch and makes it very unforgettable. But what I really love so much about The Others is the way that it presents itself, because it intentionally leads the audience to believe that it is this conventional paranormal haunted house movie. And even if it was that way, it would have still been a solid movie. Because of the way that it utilizes sound and off-screen space. Because not only does it utilize the sound design to really amplify the horror, suspense, and the paranormal element of this movie, but it also utilizes the sound design as a way to kind of keep the audience on their toes. Because throughout this entire film, you as an audience member are also wondering what the hell is going on. You don't know if this house is genuinely haunted. You don't know if the kids, specifically the daughter in this movie, is just kind of psychotic and playing tricks on the family. You don't know if the mom herself is, again, like The Innocents, just going manic and having this psychological breakdown and, just dealing with grief and abandonment. And on top of that, you're also concerned about the maid character and the crew that she brings in, because, again, the way that this movie leads you to believe certain things, it just makes you suspect pretty much everybody in this movie. And again, I can't stress enough how brilliantly this film intentionally misleads its audience. And it's not in a disingenuous way. Because, again, once you finish the movie and you understand everything, you go back and watch it, and every single way that it misleads you was technically in good faith and makes total sense within the new context. And again, by mostly utilizing sound design within the off-screen space, it's able to, again, kind of give the audience what they're there for, which is just feeling tension throughout a lot of moments in this movie, but also as a tool to keep things hidden from the audience and just completely hide information and just keep you in a constant state of mysterious suspense until finally everything starts getting answered. And this movie all around has top tier performances. I mean, obviously Nicole Kidman kills it in this movie from start to finish. Absolutely believable as this character who, again, has 2 kids. Her husband has gone off to war. He hasn't come back even though the war has ended. So she's in her mind assuming that he's just dead and never going to come back. And she's, again, dealing with her children that, you know, according to her, have like a disease towards light, like a sickness towards light exposure. And the film uses Nicole Kidman's character as a way to explore thematic ideas about religion, specifically Catholicism in this movie. But it's only using Catholicism as a way to explore ideas about the afterlife. And a lot of the conversations that she has with her children about the afterlife actually do a good bit of foreshadowing to what actually gets revealed later in the movie. But the children actually give excellent performances as well. At first, I was kind of skeptical, you know, when they first present themselves on screen. But really quickly, I started to notice and appreciate the amount of talent that they were bringing to the table. I mean, both kids did an excellent job in this movie, but I do think that the young girl had a larger load to carry and just had to carry more on her shoulders. And it's mostly because her character is more complex, because her motives and her intentions are just very ambiguous and questionable throughout the entire film. And clearly she has a lot of tension with the mother as well, so you just don't really know what's going on in her head. And Fiona LaFlanagan, the woman that plays the maid character in this movie, first of all, excellent casting. She looks great for the part. She has to play someone that comes off both incredibly wholesome and genuine, and someone that is actually kind of menacing in a way. But yeah, anyway, the performances all across the board, absolutely fantastic. This movie opens up with Nicole Kidman giving a blood-curdling scream, and I was just like immediately hooked. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna like this. And now knowing how the movie ended, I appreciate that blood-curdling scream even more now. And one last important thing about this movie that you guys need to know is that it is a perfect movie to watch during spooky season. I mean, it gives you everything that you would want out of an October movie. As I mentioned earlier in this review, this movie has a stunning gothic aesthetic to it. I mean, even the haunted house alone, you know, the way that it utilizes low-level lighting, and again, like the sound design and just the overall aesthetic is just, I mean, it has Spooktober written all over it, but even more so, a lot, like pretty much all the scenes that take place outside that just have this gothic and foggy London town aesthetic, like it's going to immediately get you into the spirit of the season. And again, personally, I loved the ending to this movie. I don't know how everybody's going to take it. I will say, like, I can see some people saying it's a bit of a product of its time. You know, in comparison to another movie that I will not name because it's just going to give this movie away. It reminds you of a very popular movie that came out a few years before this. And I think after that movie came out, you kind of had a trend of movies trying to have something very similar to that, a similar appeal. For me, I thought the ending was very, not only well written, but incredibly well executed. Just like the way that it's paced, the way that it cross-cuts, the way that everything is just revealed through the imagery. Not only does it make it more suspenseful, but it makes it even more unpredictable until the very end. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some people who watch this movie and are always going to claim, oh, I knew the ending from the very beginning. It's obvious. For me personally, no, I think it did a really good job at hiding information. And again, revealing everything at the very end in a way that, to me, had pretty damn good execution. Really, my biggest criticism I have of this movie is that there is a bit of an unforgivable amount of expositional dialogue that to me is just like either way too on the nose about something, or it's just, again, like reinforcing information that I feel like we already knew. And it has a sprinkle throughout the film, and there is like a moment in the end where it's a little bit like too much. It's like, hey, if you didn't get it already, this is what's going on. So again, like that is ultimately my biggest criticism of the movie. And unfortunately, that is a huge pet peeve of mine. I hate it when movies like visually show you stuff and just does an excellent job at showcasing a bunch of information through visuals and sound and everything, and then you have characters reinforce it through dialogue. But overall, I'm going to give The Others a strong 8 out of 10. Yeah, this movie was really awesome. Really glad that Tyree requested this, especially during spooky season. And again, I don't know how many of y'all out there have seen this movie already, but if you haven't, and you've been putting it on the back burner like I was, stop it. And if you want to talk about this movie with me in more detail, please leave a comment down below. You can also join the Discord for $5 a month on Patreon and talk to me anytime you want on any given day. Not only with me, but with Kino Lords all around the globe who also probably love the same films as you. And just be part of a really active film-loving community. But that's all I got to say about The Others. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.